Hey guys, and welcome to the glorious battlefield. Blood, victory, and death is what we want, and that is what we shall receive, at least I hope. I'm a Rubber Duck of War, and today we're going to be looking at a bit of a battle replay of Age of Empires 4. I'm playing under the guise of Blind Bandit and the Mongols, and my opponent today is going to be Skank, bringing up the mighty forces of the French. Now, I've only played about 10 games now of Age of Empires multiplayer, and this was about game 8, and it does seem at the moment that the French seem to be pretty damn powerful, so I'm very scared of my opponent for the most part. But, I'm going to give it a good go. I've been mainly bringing the Mongols so far. Also spread out to the Rus a little bit more recently. But the Mongols do have this kind of fast mobile element, which I really do enjoy, going quite cavalry heavy. But I'm well aware my opponent is going to be expecting that. I want to kind of throw them off as well. So I'm deployed all the way up here in the north. My opponent down in the south. And you can see the objectives are lined up all the way along. Now, we're playing a standard online game. This was a quick battle, so you can win by either capturing all of these sacred sites and holding them, getting a wonder, or destroying all your opponent's important buildings, such as the town centre and all their ones, which allow them to go up into the kind of next tier of their age. There should be some good fun. My opponent is instantly going to be going after a little bit of wood and gathering quite a few sheep. We've both got a similar tactic now. Something really cool that the Mongols can do, if we pop over back to my side of the battlefield, is our buildings can actually be packed up and moved around, which is really useful. So at the start of the battle, I simply move mine over to this left-hand side. So there's no need to get any kind of tech buildings to actually harvest any of these trees or anything. We're just going to be popping right next, nice and close, getting as much resources as possible. And I'm gathering a load of sheep whilst also scouting out the terrain. Have a little look at the kind of map from the Fog of War point of view. We haven't explored too much so far. I'm simply bounding around. I have managed to spot this marketplace, and today we're going to be utilizing a Mongol tactic, which is very good for new players, and I am a new player indeed, so I can say it does work relatively well. I was watching Turin play some games, and he was one who gave this idea, so I'm going to be giving it a little showcase in a bit when we do get to that tactic, but for the most part, we're simply bringing sheep back to the homeland, where we can harvest their flesh for power, and the trees being cut down as well. I'm starting to build a barracks. Normally, I would like to go for a stables, but I'm very, very scared of the French knights. So I'm trying to get some spearmen out nice and early on, just in case I receive some gifts from the French in the mid stages of the battle. I'm going to be pulling back more sheep as well. Have a little looking at my opponent to see what he's up to. Likewise, just spreading around. Hasn't seen too much of the map yet. He has now discovered one of the relics. And I'm someone who loves to hoard relics. Give me all the gold every single day. I love all these ways of getting resources. Now, I normally play Total War Warhammer, which is much more stressful as far as the amount of units there are on the battlefield, and tactics is as concerned for the military side of things, but I don't normally have to look after a base, and trust me, it is very stressful coming from one game to the next, but I've been really enjoying it. And so far, if we got the little score up here, we can actually keep the score tracker up for you guys. Ooh. We're relatively even. We are slightly ahead at the moment, simply due to that we can get our town sent into a better position than our opponent. My opponent, though, is mainly at the moment going on to food. 11 troops or 11 villagers are going to be harvesting food right now. 3 on wood and 2 on gold. And if we look at myself here, we want a little bit less. 8 on food, 3 on wood, and 1 on stone, though that stone is going to be our Uvu special building. I love this. The one main reason I actually started to learn the Mongols first, though apparently they're quite a hard faction to master, is I don't have to build houses, so I don't have to think about that. I don't really have to collect stone either, because I can just build an Uvu, and from the tactic I'm going to be showcasing later on when we get to that midpoint of the battle, I don't have to worry super much about gold either, so it's really helping kind of stop the amount of macro I have to do, and allow me to focus on micro management. We've been hunted down by some wolves here, but in the early stages of the game, not too much is going to be happening as you'd expect. So we are going to speed forward a little bit through these early stages. My opponent's simply building some houses and starting to gather more and more resources. Neither of us are going really military heavy at the moment. We both have managed to build barracks, but we're kind of racing towards that next tier. Neither of us are there just yet. But I have managed to give a couple of spearmen just in case, once again, my opponent tries any sneaky schemes. Comes in with some cavalry to harass my villagers. I can't build walls to protect my lands. The spearmen should hopefully work as a human wall to protect my troops. Now, this is where the Mongols' play comes in. We are going to be building our first economical landmark, and that is going to promote us up to age 2, and it is called the Silver Tree. It works in a very similar way to a marketplace, however it's got a few nice bonuses. We can build 2 traders at the same time, and this is really where the Mongols do shine. So we're going to be building that up as quickly as possible, but if we notice in my opponent's base, he's doing the exact same thing. Here's the Chamber of Commerce being built, so both are roughly going into this at the same point. My great Khan has managed to just have a little peek, a little bit of a nosy into my opponent's build. Realize he has some spear, and that gets me a little bit worried. And I'm going to be falling back, just being chased around by wolves who really do hate me today. But I got a nice little look at my opponent's base and did see that he indeed was going to be building up this Chamber of Commerce. So I knew we were in a roughly similar situation. And these pesky scout does start to emerge. So I'm going to be chasing off our spearmen, get off my land, trying to force him back, and also move over just to protect my gold miners in case he gets any plans or schemes. Chuck a couple of villagers into the town centre, and we do manage to draw first blood. Yes, that's what I want. Always want that first kill to get that momentum and just send a message to your opponent straight out the gate. Now, we have been promoted now to a new age, and you can see our player score is quite significantly better than our opponents. Actually, not too much, but hey, we're in a new age and we have a better score. I'll take it. We're going to start building up an archery range to counter the enemy spearmen that I've already seen, and slowly start to feed in more and more traders when we start to get the money. So this is the button we want to use for our sneaky little Mongol tactic, and it's going to get us some traders. They're not too expensive either. We have managed to locate a relatively safe market. Now, the way the markets work is the longer the distance traveled, the more money your traders will accumulate, of course. But luckily for the Mongols, as we spoke about earlier, you can pack up their buildings. So I can build this in a nice, safe location, and then when I have my traders, I'm going to pack it up and move it further and further away from my base to increase the amount of money-making potential we can get. Now, we have built some warriors. They're a little bit battle-hardened. They've killed a scout, so they're certainly not too fresh under the nose or under the ears anymore, but they're not the greatest warriors in existence, and I'm not really utilizing any of the basic Mongol tactics of hounding and harassing my opponent's civilization, attacking these peasants, and just annoying them in general. And it's mainly because I'm a little bit scared of the spearmen that I know my opponent does possess. He's got quite a few chasing me around at the moment, though the Khan, if managed correctly, shouldn't actually be able to be caught. He's just being a big old pain in the butt right now, driving his way through, just distracting my opponent and just checking out his base at the same time. Now, I do love the Mongolian fruit singing. I must put that out there as well. The reason I started playing this game again is I went and watched Dune, and it's a really fantastic film, and there was some Mongolian fruit singing in it. I was like, oh, I need to play Age of Empires and play some Mongols. So we're going to continue to harvest here, just some trees as well as the general sheep, though we have actually started to run out of sheep, which is a little bit scary. So I'm going to be moving forward and just starting to hunt down the deer with the use of this Gur building, which is particularly useful. And again, the Mongols, they have very limited buildings, which is why I think they're actually relatively decent for brand new players to understand at least. You don't have to play them to their massive strengths of this cavalry, which is a lot of micro and macro, but they've got a lot less buildings, you have to worry about houses and so on, so I think they're a relatively nice faction for beginners like me. I'm going to continue to fall back. I have managed to spot at this point, if we go back to just my point of view, that my opponent is kind of penned in. I've found out that he has this one little exit here in the middle and one down on the left-hand side. I've also managed to gather the position of the majority of the relics on the battlefield. My main plan is going to be to push up to this marketplace and dominate the center of the battlefield, allow myself to trade, and slowly strangling off the resources to my opponent. That's at least what I want to do. But let's have a little look what Skank's up to and what he's thinking about. He's explored the map, not quite as much as we have just yet, but he has painted a rather nice picture, and he certainly has the military might over us at the moment. 15 spearmen, as well as a couple of horsemen. It's pretty scary stuff, and he does have a decent amount of population. 39 of them are on economy, and let's see how that compares to us. We have 32, so we are a little bit behind economy-wise. My opponent has just leapt leaps and bounds ahead of me now on the player score, and this is something that I struggle with as a newer player, is the mid-game and the late game. I've played a lot less of them than I have at beginner games, so obviously I'm a little bit more rusty at them. We'll have to see if that's going to pay dividends, but now we have started to put into effect this not-so-secret Mongol tactic, which is just so useful. We can pair up these traders, so buy 2 at a time, and we're now bouncing back and forth to this trading post. You can see they're holding 34 gold at the moment and free food, which is rather nice, but in a minute we are going to pack up the silver tree and move it a little bit further back, and that's only going to mean we're going to get more and more resources for every single trade we do. We still gather a nice little force of spearmen and archers. Now, top tier play, normally there's going to be a lot more harass than this, and there'd be probably 1 or 2 battles already taken place at this point. But both me and my opponent playing a little bit conservative, a little bit reserved here, and don't want to push forward too much. My opponent is starting to spread out with some mills. And you can see he's also got his own traders moving to this trading post over on the left-hand side, as well as some sneaking into the middle. They're going to be backed up by a bucket ton of spearmen, and the first sight of battle may well and truly be underway as we do line up against each other. I am outnumbered, but I have archers. Archers are perfect counter to spearmen, of course, and we start raining down hell upon my opponent, who completely decides to ignore me at all possibilities. And let's push this forward. He's really looking just to harass my backline and my peasants, rather than engage my frontline troops. He should probably have pulled back, I would think. But this is looking a little bit scary. I do have a load of villagers here. Luckily, I did build a sneaky little outpost, so I'm going to be retreating back to the outpost. Unfortunately, it's full. These guys banging on the door. Let us in, but they've locked the door. Luckily, we can shoot quite a few arrows down. We're going to lose a couple of our peasants, 1 or 2 maybe. We should be able to take out the majority of these spearmen, and that is a very, very good trade for us. He's really trying to hunt down the traders now, but we have more spearmen coming in. We only have the 2 military buildings at the moment, which is a little bit rough, but still got decent troops across the board, up to 60 population, which is quite nice. And we are going to be able to grab all of these spearmen and put them to the sword. Now, this is my time. I've gained the momentum. I've destroyed my opponent's small force. I'm going to start moving up a little bit more towards this trading post and really try to secure the middle by also building a couple of stables here so we can get those troops to the front line just that little bit quicker, which is certainly going to be very nice indeed. The traders are quite happily bouncing it back and forth. I still not moved the silver tree just yet, showing my noob skills perhaps a little bit too much there, but soon we will be moving this back as planned. We have a couple of villagers, it would seem, in the main town. They do need to pop out, which I'm sure I will do in just a second. But as for my opponent, let's see what he's doing at building-wise. He is starting to build the Royal Institute, going up to that age-free military landmark, which is quite nice. And he's also building a lot more archery ranges and barracks and a bucket ton of stables, so really way ahead of me on macro as far as the organization of his little village here, as well as the amount of buildings he has. You really do want multiple military buildings, whereas I kind of tend to do 1 or 2 of each. You want them in droves so you can really flood the front line as quickly as possible with as many troops. Now, the Royal Institute is being built, but likewise, I believe I'm not that far behind. Though we only have the silver tree up here, we are starting to build our next landmark ourselves. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of this, so probably not best for me to say it, but we're going to go Kurultai, and it's a really nice building, actually, which works quite nicely for the Mongols, as it is one of their only defensive buildings they can get. We're building some outposts alongside it as well, just in case we try to mine this gold a little bit later. More importantly, if the Khan is nearby, he can heal up nearby troops, and considering this is going to be my forward base of operations, it makes perfect sense to have this here, and hopefully protect my troops whilst I can also buff and heal them up. Now, as for our build, we have a mixture of archers and spearmen protected by a couple units of cavalry. My opponent tends to be going more all-in on one thing or the other. There's a load of cav in one contingent, and that's all he has at the moment, but he seems to attack, all spearmen, all cav, all range. And I do notice he's been a sneaky little devil. He has a trader coming to my own little trading post here in the center. I'm going to be trying to drive him away, and we are actually going to send off after one of my early horsemen to try to chase him down. We'll be moving up my forces just a little bit to help protect this trade post and try to strangle the funds out of my opponent instead. Now, the player score, we are falling more and more behind. As we get to the midpoint of this battle, I'm not doing it super great. I have managed to win the only battle, though, and although I have won the battle, it does seem like I'm certainly losing the war at the moment. But huzzah, we have finally going to be moving back our glorious silver tree here, and now these traders are going to be getting quite a considerable amount of gold. 67 gold is a huge amount per trip, which I like a ton. Now, our horseman unfortunately did go down. We tried chasing that trader all the way in. We were very close to killing him, but we can't quite pull it off. And we're going to be hitting age 3 roughly the same time as our opponent. And these horsemen are now streaming forth down the hill. A battle cry ripped from their lips as they charge forward. And cavalry is actually really scary to the Mongols, surprisingly, because I have no walls. I can't keep these guys out. They just circumvent my entire army and start flooding up towards my main base, which is really scary because they can hurt you in where it really hurts, which is your economy. Killing your peasants is one of the best ways to distract and harass and annoy your opponent and put them on the back foot. So I'm having to chase back with my spearmen. I've left some troops at the front here just in case this was a bit of a bait. And he was just trying to distract me. And he's just streaming in here. And it's a little bit scary. So moving away peasants away where possible. We do, of course, have the town center here, which is going to be assisting and shooting in. My opponent's really going after this Uvu for some reason. I mean, it's a relatively decent and important building for me. We've got a couple of spearmen nearby, and some more have started to catch up. Likewise, we have our own cavalry, which we can use to pin the enemy in place and hopefully overwhelm them. Now, we've gone into a new age, which is all nice and well, although we're still behind on the player score, despite being at age ahead of my opponent, and my cavalry is dying in droves. We are able to pin in the enemy forces, and the spearmen are going about their butcher's work, dragging these knights into the dirt, where they can then slip their blade between the cracks in their armor and end their miserable lives. And down the knights go. I was prepared for knights coming in with the majority of spearmen that I have. These traders, look how many traders I have going along this path. So many. I'm really just trying to get as much gold as possible, and we're getting plus 652 gold a minute, which is quite frankly pretty ridiculous. So if you look at income per minute, we are way ahead on stone, way ahead on gold, behind on the other two, however, which may be a little bit problematic the longer we go in the game. Let's go back to the player score. I think that's quite a nice one just to show how the game is going so far. I'm going to be rallying our troops into the center here. So the archers and the hardened spearmen just holding the battle line in the name of all that is holy for the Mongol people. It looks like the Uvu has been depleted, but I'm not too fussed. I don't need stone that much realistically, and I've not been really using it too much for its buffs, which I should do. But again, as a newer player, I was trying to focus on other stuff rather than worrying about all these buffs and different trinkets. But we'll be moving them in at some point in the future. We have had to move away from our glorious sheep economy and moving over to these berry bushes, just trying to get them whilst we can. Now, this is a bit of a mistake once again. I have 2 gers here. You don't need 2 gers. For some reason, I was like, oh yeah, I'll build a mill here and we'll build a mining camp here. We don't need this. We could have just used this single one. It's a little bit of waste of resources, but nothing too crazy. As for my opponent, he has a decent amount of traders as well. They're going to be going down to this left-hand sided trade post. I should probably go over here and cut these guys off, but I'm so focused on protecting the center. I want to dominate the middle of the map, and we are now healing up some of our troops due to the fact we have, this glorious building nearby. And I believe the Khan here, unless we do maybe have a priest. No, we have the Khan, so the Khan is blessing people with his mighty powers. More traders are going to be going back and forth. I should be building some more than this, and we do start to do that. You can see we have floating madwood as well as gold at the moment. I don't really have too many military buildings, but we are starting to just upgrade all our troops at the moment, and now starting to flood the battlefield a bit more with some of our elite veteran horsemen. I may be thinking of doing a raid into enemy territory at some point soon. And for my opponent, again, he's mainly doing macro, but he has brought into the battle the Royal Knights. Now, Royal Knights are very, very scary. French Knights in general can pack an absolute massive punch. Plus, we have a load of the beautiful crossbowmen here. They're kind of the special ones. I want to say arblasters, but that's not the right word for these guys. That's for a different game entirely, but basically really powerful crossbowman here. And he has got way more military buildings than me. You can see 5 archery ranges in one place, and I have, I think, 1. So I am building so much slower than my opponent. This is also due to the fact that I've kind of like been focusing so much on just, exploring the map and kind of building up these buildings, looking at all what my buildings do, looking at my upgrades and that kind of stuff. But in the future, I really do need to learn, hey, you got to build way more military buildings than like this. But I have managed to win at the only couple of battles we've had so far, and it's a pretty peaceful time right now. There's peace amongst the land, the French and Mongols living in absolute harmony. Let's speed forward now a little bit, as it's a relatively slow game at this point. Both of us just gathering resources. I'm chopping down basically illustrious worth of trees here, trying to get as much wood as possible. And our gold is really rocketing. Look how much we are floating right now in the wood and gold departments, though food is lacking slightly. And now we start to move forwards a bit, so I get a little bit aggressive here. I see some of his traders, I go for them, I hunt them down, I'm increasing my speed, and I want to do a raid on this little bit of land right here and take down some of his troops. Now, I do notice he has some crossbowmen, and I can certainly bomb rush them, but I'm looking to burn some buildings first. As of course with the Mongols, we're going to get a bonus for all the buildings we destroy, and our knights lance down these elite crossbowmen. It doesn't matter how elite you are, you cannot stand before the might of the cavalry of the Mongols, and I'm slaughtering them where they stand, surrounding them. Even our hardened spearmen are getting in here and carving them up to pieces. We've managed to do a decent amount of damage to the enemy economy as well by taking down a load here of their woodcutters. And we're also finishing off a decent amount of the traders who are coming in. Now, the cavalry does go for a desperate charge forward. We are going to pin them in place once more, like we did earlier on, with a mixture of our spearmen as well as our cavalry, and slowly put them to the sword now. The veteran archers are running shot after shot in, doing some really solid damage. You can see the Royal Knights, though they may be elite, will eventually get stranded or dragged down. I'm going to start doing a little bit of work onto the buildings. Now, at this point, I wasn't experienced enough to know, could I go after the town centre and have a hope of dragging it down, as well as these other landmarks to try to get victory here? And I wasn't 100% sure what my opponent had build-wise, so I decided instead I'm just going to pick apart some of these edge buildings, gain a bit of money for myself, and put my opponent on the back foot, though he has now entered the Imperial Age, which is certainly a little bit scary. So we're doing some nice raiding in general, burning down buildings and trying to harass and annoy my opponent wherever possible. Elsewhere, I'm just going to be building up my forces once more. We are actually coming in with some crossbowmen now, just to take down those cavalry. Their armor-piercing bolts can certainly help out quite a bit. Traders continue to go back and forth, and not doing anything too bad, but I am floating so much resource. That's kind of my main problem at the moment. Again, I am trying to micro over here. We've got the knights running in. We've destroyed quite a few of the military buildings. The archers for us are all relatively healthy as well. And I should be pushing after this town centre at the point. We have a decent amount of troops here. I don't have to worry about my enemy army coming in too much. We do have the support of the archers. But on the side here, I've taken quite a lot of losses here. I think I've done a decent amount of damage, and it's been a relatively cost-effective trade for me so far. So I'm going to continue just to destroy a few more buildings and then start to fall back to this central portion of the battle. Maybe do some raid on these troops if I can, because there's nothing protecting these guys over here, and I'm looking to burn down my opponent's market, because I'm not a big fan of him stealing my gold and my trade. So the cavalry go after the villagers whilst we burn down the market here. The majority of them are going to be able to escape, unfortunately, and fall back to the town centre, but all the time my opponent is seeking shelter, he is not farming, so that's obviously going to be fantastic for me and help me catch up a little bit. Though Skenk is miles ahead on player score, like so far ahead. 1,500 more score than me is really making me a little bit nervous right now, as we do push in and try to drag down these horsemen. Now, we do have some reinforcements coming, luckily, as our forces were getting rather depleted. We actually are coming in now with some lancers, which are pretty awesome. They're going to be moving into hand-to-hand combat, just looking to overwhelm the enemy and surround them once more. We even have a scout getting down and dirty, trying to fight the veteran archers, but these guys have seen many a war in their time. Their reinforcements are brought in from Paris itself, and they don't really care about scouts anymore. Scouts can be a relatively decent backline harass troop, but really we need to see more of these lancers and so forth getting in. We're just destroying my opponent's military. I'm taking quite considerable damage now in casualties from the town centre. So we are going to say, hey, you know what? We did some decent damage, and we're just going to pull back towards the middle and once again protect our trade a little bit here. All my backline stuff, all my macros completely fallen off as I was dealing with my micro there, but we're not floating quite as much resources anymore, which is certainly good news for me. And we're going to be moving forward with a couple of villagers to start to build up some more archery ranges, and finally some barracks as well, so actually start to get a decent military presence. And the fact we have this forward position is so nice right now, because it means we can reinforce the front line way quicker than our opponent can, at least when it comes down to protecting the center of the battlefield. My opponent has built a couple of houses over to the right-hand side and just has this one villager living by himself, daydreaming of days gone by where he lived in a civilization full of war and carnage and Mongol raids. He's just living the good life right now, and we haven't yet spotted him, so he's currently living quite the happy time at the moment. I'm going to be using the majority of my forces now to kind of wait in this choke point. Just knowing my opponent's not going to have the best chance to wiggle around me in any way. I have not noticed there's a flank down here on the right-hand side my opponent can escape, but I did notice the one on the left, luckily for me, which is super good. So we can continue to build up all our military buildings in the front. It is taking us quite some time. I only have 2 villagers on this whilst we do replenish the army a little bit. So we have a load more coming to the front. And we're also starting to build some pastures in the back, just to, you know, get a little bit more economy going as well, food-wise, as we have started to run out of the deer that we have been hunting. Looks like my opponent is me trying to break free consistently, always trying to get through this gap, and I'm just going to say no, not today. And our knights simply going to be used to hunt down the archers. These guys really need to be fleeing right now, but I don't think it will do them too much good. They have no support. I instantly just been targeted down the cavalry, killing them super quickly, and then jumping on top of the range with all my cavalry. It's been absolutely fantastic so far. The lancers have been particularly impressive. Despite this, though, the player score is massively in my opponent's favour. Despite me winning every single battle we fought, I am really struggling elsewhere. Now, we are building a bucket ton of knights, looking to do some more raiding into my opponent's backline where possible, and we're building more archery rangers up here in the middle as well. Now, I've built a prayer tent, which is really nice for me. I'm going to be building some monks soon who we then can bounce around. I know the majority of the locations for these glorious relics here. We should be able to get them back and be another good way of getting some big old fat juicy gold. Elsewhere, we build any more important buildings. We're building yet another marketplace just so we can trade a little bit. We don't need one in particular because we do, of course, have the main one, but it's always good to have a couple. You can then build extra traders, which can be quite nice. And our population is getting up to the 96 range right here, which is relatively decent. We're kind of spam building villages at the moment. No second TC so far, no second town centre, anything like that. I'm quite content with what I have at the moment. And just look at the traders. The amount of gold they're hauling back and forth, plus wood, plus meat. It is so juicy. And my force is just lingering and waiting, pinning my opponent in place. He has a decent build himself. He has kind of some hand cannoneers now, so he's certainly researched quite effectively and gone up to the Imperial Age. And it's a little bit spooky. He's got the elite troops. I have the numbers. And so far, I've had the better kind of engagements, man, to hop on top of the right targets. A little bit better than my opponent has been able to so far. We're starting to construct some siege workshops so I can push forward with trebuchets and other kind of siege engines. Though my opponent hasn't brought any walls yet, they're still pretty useful for taking down town centers, taking down landmarks and other defensive buildings as well. So we have managed to build our market. The prayer tent is now starting to spawn some shamans who are going to once again, of course, been getting sent around just to get these relics across the battlefield. And my opponent does seem to be building a mine, so he's expanded out a tiny bit, but nothing too crazy. And we've managed to choke his trade right now. If you could get his traders to go around this left-hand side, however, that'd be really quite nice. Maybe build a marketplace down in this corner, and then you can float them around and still get a decent amount of trade from this trading post, because at the moment, I am the only one getting trade. I'm absolutely dominating, at least in the gold front. So if we have a little look here at the current resources, no, it's income per minute. There we go. We're relatively close, but considering we have so fewer people, we're actually doing relatively decent with the gold. The other elements, the wood and the food, we are certainly quite far behind on. We need to spam a lot more villagers than we currently are doing, and the player score is just getting further and further away. Just start building some outposts close to my opponent's base, just so I can get a little bit more sight as well, and make sure he can't flank around in any different direction. Shaman's now going to be wandering over to go get those relics, and we have got a decent amount of siege workshops in place. I'm going to start building some trebuchets as well as some springolds here. Just try and apply a little bit more pressure to my opponent with the might there of the glorious siege engines. We do have a shaman. He's brought back a relic to the prayer tent. He's currently holding outside up to the population. Look what I have. I have a glorious jar of dirt, and then he pops it back into the prayer tent, and we'll be going off once more on a quest to find more relics. We're going to start building the blacksmiths as well, just to upgrade our troops, something that we could have done a long time ago, and it's going to be pretty useful to come in and just make our troops a little bit more elite and can go toe-to-toe with the French troops just that bit better, because the French troops are certainly outmatching me, but luckily we're getting our horsemen onto his archers, getting our spearmen onto his cavalry, and just getting those good rock, paper, scissors kind of trades pretty damn effectively. So down in the main, you can see we've expanded out even more here with all of these barracks, and we're starting to move troops, and we're forming quite a nice army here. We have a mixture of veteran archers, we have lancers, and we're also starting to get one or two veteran spearmen in here just to help protect our range contingents. We have a traction trebuchet, and we're looking to line up some shots and drag down the Royal Institute, Chamber of Commerce, and the town centre. My opponent, rather lovely, has lined up all three of his landmarks in one place that I need to destroy. Actually, all four of them are kind of clumped together, which maybe in a way makes them good for him to defend, because hey, I've only got this 1 point to defend, but likewise it's very easy for me to come in here and destroy them, whereas for my force, I've got a landmark here, a landmark all the way over in the corner, my town center's in the middle. Like, you've got to bounce all around the battlefield to actually take me down, meaning that those fast hit and run lightning strikes to try to destroy me won't work anywhere near as effective. We are starting to claim one of the sacred sites in the name of the Mongols, which is nice, and bam, there it is. It is now ours. We're going to start bouncing out as well, probably to these other sacred sites, though I'm not looking to really win this by winning via sacred site. It certainly will help out with gold, and now we're going to start to push in, get a little bit more aggressive. We've been quite passive, and funnily enough, at the same time, my opponent was thinking the same thing. So once again, The cavalry's going to be going in, hunting down the enemy range. The spearmen are poking down the knights who are trying to force path their way now onto our veteran archers. But they've seen many a Frenchman before, and they do not fear them. We're shutting down the enemy siege engines, and the cavalry is starting to swarm the enemy archers, surround them, and drag them down. Field trebuchets are well and truly operational now, launching shot after shot at the town centre and the Chamber of Commerce, looking to bring them low. We do once again manage to destroy my opponent's build, and this is a mistake once more. Look at the force. We have so many troops here, and we've destroyed my opponent's army. I need to be pushing in. We could simply hop in here and finish this game off right now and right here. Is this going to be a huge mistake that costs me the game? Quite possibly, because I'm just consistently letting my opponent rebuild his army, which is like, no! It's very scary, but luckily this little tactic we have of getting the trade post, getting the landmark, and moving it to the corner of the map is just, it's carrying us right now. It's meaning I have so much resources, I can afford to make all these other noob mistakes. And this is why I think this is a really fantastic tactic for new Mongol players to learn, is, hey, get this trade in landmark, build it somewhere safe while you need to, and then when you have a safe location to hide in, move back and hide it, and just spam traders, because they get you so much economy wise. Now the trebuchets have done a decent job, it would seem, doing a little bit of damage. So they've all they've done here, they've kind of packed up again, like, yeah, not today, we've had enough for today. We'll be moving them forward in a little bit, no doubt. My opponent has got a university now down here on the left, just in the open plains, looking rather beautiful. And is he starting to amass another army? Yes, he is. It's kind of in the form at the moment of all these elite horsemen, but he simply doesn't really have the resources, it seems. Let's see if he's floating as bad as I am. Nowhere near, so he's not really floating as bad as I am, but he has built so many more buildings. Look at this place. It is not even a town anymore. This is like a mini city. Whereas for me, I'm a lot more sparse across the board in general. And that does mean, in a way, that I can spend more money on my military might, rather than just spending it all, of course, on buildings. Now, at the same time, my opponent's lost a lot more troops than me, so that means we can kind of afford to have less resources in a way. Now, where is the cavalry? It looks like it's moving down the left-hand side, and this is a decent force of horsemen right now. If I move over to my opponent, can I actually see how many there is here? So we have 17 horsemen just starting to read through this left-hand side. I do have a cheeky little shaman trying to make a move over to this left-hand side and get this sacred site, but I think he may well be intercepted here. We have more trebuchets coming in, and we're just slowly bombarding the enemy, slowly over time, looking to drag them down where possible, and hopefully whittle down my opponent from range in this slow push style of play, which is relatively safe and relatively chilled. I'm sorry, they got a little bit of burp, but it's relatively safe and chill, just slow approach. And every time my opponent comes in, he is dashing after the trebuchets, does manage to catch one, but at what cost? Every time he kills a trebuchet, I'm killing dozens and dozens of French knights here. The archers are whittling them down from long range, loosing arrows and piercing their thick armor, and the horsemen and spearmen, it's just quite comfortable at the moment to destroy this. And now the trebuchets can line up some shots, and once again get in and start shooting. We're going to continue to aim for the town centre. Again, big mistake for me. I can just push in and take this right now. But again, being a newer player, I was like, oh, I don't really know how long it takes to destroy these buildings with horsemen and spearmen and stuff. So my opponent's going to try a bit of a Hail Mary here, and he's forcing all his horsemen up and around this left-hand side. Not only can he start destroying all my villagers, but the Mongols don't really have any defensive buildings. So he's actually going to try to start destroying my town centres and all of my landmarks and stuff, which is very, very scary. So he's going after my landmarks, going after my peasants, and I have no army back here, so I panic. I'm like, oh my god, what do I do? My opponent's attacking me. He's destroying my base. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try and destroy his buildings faster than he can destroy mine. So the torches are out, and we just start launching torches at this town center. We've set it on fire. It is ablaze, and now we can move on to the next building. My opponent's taking advantage of this. All his cavalry swarming my archers, looking to overwhelm them, as well as my artillery pieces getting shut down, and the race is on. My town center is being burned to the ground, and once this is taken down, my opponent can simply reave his way over to the back and start destroying all my peasants, or likewise start destroying all of my important buildings. So I'm just like force clicking my beam. I'm like, we must destroy these buildings, drag them down, drag them down. We've set a few things on fire. That's a mill in the distance, doesn't really matter. My opponent is trying to counter us with as many horsemen as possible, but the Chamber of Commerce is set ablaze and on fire. Just the two more buildings to go. We do have some trebuchets up here. We even have a shaman coming forward to do some crazy voodoo in the name of the Mongols to try to drag down the enemy and curse them. I'm going after the College of Artillery right now, and I was panicking quite a lot because my opponent was in my base. I couldn't really defend my town center very well, and I am building more forces to try to come back here to protect. We've got horsemen and the like, hopefully looking to drag down my opponent. We do manage to destroy, though, the other landmark, and we just have the Royal Institute to go. And panicking, the race is on, the race is on. And the big problem here is I'm actually running out of troops quite badly on the front. Likewise is my opponent, though. We're starting to drag him down. We might even be able to save the town center, which is quite nice. A lot of his troops are starting to get dragged down. And we've got horsemen and other units nearby for a bit of support. But in the main base, we do manage to drag down that last economic landmark, which is really nice for me. And we've got one more, the Royal Institute. And again, I was like looking through the mini-map. I'm like, I don't know what buildings these are. I don't know what buildings these are. I haven't played the French. What do I do? And I'm kind of fighting this losing battle. And I need to force my people over here to take down the Royal Institute. And here we go. We have a couple of torches left. We've been swarmed by the enemy. They're all around us. But we are getting those torches in and starting to drag down the building. Now is the time. Now is the hour. Riders of Mongolia. This overview of taken, tear down the enemy, and we do just about manage to do it, forming a rather nice victory, which is a little bit more close than it should have been. My opponent was basically about to destroy my town center. It looks like we did actually just about clear up his troops, luckily. I think we would have been able to save that. We could have won so many times on the battlefield, but hey, noob mistakes will be noob mistakes. But this tactic of using these glorious traders, getting this landmark and just rolling back to the corner of the map to a safe location and just spamming traders is really what carried me there and was certainly very nice. Now, I'm not sure if I can get you guys, so you can see this is the amount of games I've played. I've really not played that many. It's only more defeats than victories, but I've been having an absolute blast with this game. So if you guys did enjoy this, by the way, make sure to like, subscribe, and all that standard stuff, and comment down below if you'd like to see more Age of Empires stuff. Don't worry, I'm not going to be doing any less Total War Warhammer content. Before, I'd mix in some Age of Empires stuff as well, and yeah, let me know if you'd like to see more of this in the future. So oh no, although we can do timelines. So here we go. This is the timeline we had up against Skank. Well played Skank, by the way. He did pretty good. And you can see we were relatively even for the majority of the battle. There's some pretty big battles here. And every time we have a battle, we go up a bit and our opponent falls down almost every single time. We were just able to dominate the battlefield. And eventually it led us to winning the war. And at the very end, though, we kind of dropped massively below our opponent as our villagers got slaughtered and our town center was under attack and all our military died. But we managed to persevere and take down those enemy landmarks and eventually get the victory. So we can go to statistics now as well. Total score, I was absolutely dumpstered. My opponent nearly didn't quite get double me, but was getting up that way. He had better military score, better economic score, better technology score, worse society score, however. But when it says better military score, I mean, I think he just had like more troops or something. I killed the most, I lost the least, I raised the most, and I lost the least buildings, with also coming in the largest army of 165 troops. And yeah, so pretty interested why my opponent had more score than me there. Maybe he just because he bought more troops over time. Or maybe upgrades count towards the score. Not entirely sure, but you can see we lost less troops and we killed more. And that is what it's all about. Economically, we lost on food, we lost on wood, we won on stone and gold, and quite considerably. And we really did get carried by our gold today. And that was from that sneaky little trader tactic with the landmark, which is quite nice. So pretty decent stuff there all around. Technology-wise, my opponent, once again, was massively ahead in general, though we did get to Age 2 and Age 3 first, which is really nice. Just helping get us that little bit of edge in the battlefield section, and it really did come down to soldiers win wars rather than resources at the end of the day. As for the society score, we were ahead. We captured more relics than him. We only caught 0 relics. In fact, we caught 3. Hit a massive larger villager high, which is something I really think he did pretty good. His macro, his buildings, the amount of buildings he had so he could get units to the front line, his amount of villagers, gathering resources was all much better than mine, but unfortunately for him, he suffered in the military fight. And average villager idle, 3 minutes. That's not great. That's not great. But we pretend we didn't see that. We pretend we don't see that bit. And hey, at the end of the day, a victory is a victory. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Until next time, peace, peace. And as always, stay awesome.